Hey everyone, welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name is Brittany. I'm a health coach and nutritionist, and my channel is all about helping you to create delicious low FODMAP meals to improve your digestive health. If you're into it, go ahead and subscribe. I'll be putting out a new video each week. Okay, so today we are making breakfast casserole, which is an amazing recipe for meal prepping. That's what I typically like it for. So the great thing about this recipe is that it's highly customizable. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a basic version with spinach, tomato, and potato, and a little green onion and sausage in it. But you could also use leftover taco meat, bell peppers, black beans. You could pretty much put anything that you want in there, as long as it's a low FODMAP serving. So we're going to be using about 4 cups of spinach packed in there. I like a lot of spinach. The tomatoes, a few green onions, the green tops only, and baby Yukon Gold potatoes. These are my favorite potatoes because they're less starchy than russet potatoes, and they just have like a nice buttery flavor. We're also going to be using pork sausage today. It can be difficult to find sausage that doesn't have any garlic or onion in it, but this one has less than 2% of flavorings, and I feel like that's good enough. If you want to be really strict, you can just use ground pork or ground beef and add your own flavorings to it. But I find that when it says just like flavorings at less than 2%, it doesn't really cause a reaction for me. And I am actually allergic to garlic. It's not just like a low FODMAP thing for me, and I'm fine. So you should be fine too if you're trying to do the low FODMAP diet. All right, so we're going to start by going over to the stove and cooking down our spinach and our pork before we throw everything together. All right, so we've got our oven preheating at 350 degrees. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil to our pan, which is on high heat. And we're going to add our spinach. Got about 4 cups here of spinach that's been packed. Now we're just going to cook this down because spinach is full of water, and you don't want it to cook in your casserole because it'll water down your casserole and mess it up. We're going to throw a little bit of salt and pepper on this. And that's the only seasoning that we're putting in this casserole. All right, so this has been cooking down for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to take it off of the flame and drain it. Okay, now we're going to cook our sausage. Okay, now we're just going to brown this on high heat. All right, our sausage has been browning for about 10 minutes. It's okay if there's a couple of pink spots left. It's going to finish cooking in the oven. Okay, so now we're just going to turn the heat off and we're going to assemble the rest of our casserole while this cools. Okay, so I've just been draining our spinach here in a wire mesh strainer. I'm just going to squish out the excess moisture and then transfer it over here to the bowl. Oh my God, I can't believe that that's 4 cups of spinach. It's crazy. You can use as much spinach as you want, really. It doesn't have any FODMAPs in it. Now we're just going to put our sausage in the same strainer to strain out the grease. We're going to continue to let those cool while we assemble the rest of our casserole. Okay, so I've got a dozen eggs here. Just going to crack all these in. You definitely don't need to make this much. I've got a family of 5 that I'm feeding, and this casserole is nice because it yields about 9 pieces, but you can totally make half of the size if it's just you or if there's only 2 of you doing this. Also, my family they're not entirely low FODMAP. Not all of them are doing the low FODMAP diet. Like, this recipe is just really good. Okay, now I'm going to use an electric whisk to whisk it up. You don't have to do this. You can do it by hand. I just don't want to go through the effort. If you are using an electric whisk, make sure not to over mix it because you'll start to make meringue. Okay, I'm just going to start cutting up our potatoes. You want them in nice, bite-sized pieces. And I'm just going to toss them right into our egg mixture. If you chop your potatoes before, they can turn black. because they oxidize pretty quickly, which is why I like doing it like this. Another cool thing you can do with this recipe is you can actually use frozen tater tots, and then you don't have to do any chopping. You can also use sweet potatoes if you like, but just be careful because they do have FODMAPs in them. The serving size is half a cup, so you just want to make sure that you don't have more than half a cup for each serving, which you probably won't. Okay, now we're just going to use the green tops of these green onions. Okay, just toss those right in. So here we have a common vine tomato, which doesn't have any FODMAPs in it, but other varieties of tomatoes like cherry tomatoes and Roma tomatoes do have FODMAPs in them. So if you're using those types, you want to make sure that you're using a low FODMAP serving. Okay, our sausage is pretty cool now, so we're just going to throw that in. Our sausage is still a little bit warm, but it's not hot enough to scramble our eggs, which is what we're trying to avoid. So now we're just going to mix it all together. You can also put cheese in this, as long as you're using a hard cheese like cheddar or, I don't know, there's lots of hard cheeses. Monterey Jack, that's another one. I'm not putting any cheese today because a few of my family members don't eat cheese, so I'm just going to keep it simple. And for the ones that do, when they reheat it, they can sprinkle a little cheese on the top. After you're done mixing it, it's going to look like this. Okay, so now I just have a silicone baking dish, which I've put on top of a regular baking tray. I like this because the casserole doesn't stick to it as much. That is the one drawback to this recipe, is that egg is like kind of hard to clean off of a casserole dish. So I just got this off of Amazon if you guys want to check it out. We're going to grease it with a little avocado spray and then just pour it in. Just kind of level it out. And if I was using cheese, I would add a little bit more to the top. Okay, now we're just gonna throw it in the oven for about an hour at 350 degrees. Hey everyone, we're back with the second half of the breakfast casserole. I'm so sorry, I know the video looks different, I know I look different. Our oven actually broke when we were filming this video the first time, so came back a few weeks later to finish it up. All right, so here we have our breakfast casserole that has been baking in the oven at 375 for 1 hour. It's nice and golden brown on the top. Our potatoes are cooked all the way through. Okay, so this has been cooling for probably about an hour. So now we're going to take this out of our silicone baking dish. And to do that, we are actually going to put this board on top and then flip it. Those silicone things can be a little tough to work with. Now we're just going to peel it off. This will be perfect for an ASMR video. Okay, and then I just soak this and it'll come right off. So typically I just flip this over once and then cut it upside down, but I flipped it over another time so we can get some pictures. So now I'm just going to finish cutting it. I typically cut this into 9 pieces, but you can really do whatever your appetite calls for. All right, let's plate this up. It's so good and savory from the sausage in there. It's got nice texture from the potatoes. The cheese on top gives it a bit of a crust. I feel like a lot of times egg casseroles can be chewy, but this recipe doesn't come out chewy at all. It has a really nice texture. So you can either cook up this casserole and serve it hot if you have a bunch of people you need to feed, but I typically make it as a meal prep, and then I just slide these squares into a Ziploc bag and keep them in the fridge. When I reheat them though, I do cut up the casserole like this and then put it in the microwave for about 1 minute and 30 seconds. It helps it to heat much more evenly. I usually make a tomatillo sauce to put on it too, which is in my pork chili verde video. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. All right, guys, there we have it, a low FODMAP breakfast casserole in an hour and 30 minutes. I hope you guys liked this video, found it helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. If you make this recipe, don't forget to tag me, and I'll see you guys next week.